Good morning, everyone. It's good to see such a crowd here this morning. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Harrison Morton Middle School. It's really an honor for me to introduce our special guest this morning. Our students in Pennsylvania are better off because of this governor and his investments in our public schools. Pennsylvania's graduation rate is 86.1 as a state, and we are a fifth leading producer of STEM graduates. Just as importantly, this governor has shown a willingness to tackle tough issues, to fight for funding equity, and to make our tax dollars spent the right way. Excuse me, I've been ill, and so educating the children of Allentown is everyone's business. And I thank you all for your commitment to our students and our community. Excuse me. Based on the current fiscal situation of the Allentown School District, our board has passed a resolution asking that all charter schools that serve Allentown students join us in reducing costs to support our district's ability to educate students. It is fitting and exciting on the heels of that request that our governor has chosen Allentown, the third largest city in the Commonwealth, and the Harrison Morton Middle School to make this announcement. Thank you, Governor, and welcome.
Thank you, Audrey, and it's good to be here, and thank you, everybody, for your attendance here today. There are a few things that government should do, but ensuring that every child gets a good education is surely one of them. In my mind, it's actually the most important thing. Evidently, the founders of Pennsylvania's Constitution thought so too. And if we want Pennsylvania a commonwealth that is prosperous and healthy and strong, we need good schools. We need to make sure that every child gets a good education. That has to be true everywhere, and for every child, for every family. That means ensuring the right conditions for high quality, safe, accessible, equitable public schools, including public charter schools and public cyber charter schools. And we need to do this in a financially responsible way. Right now in Pennsylvania, we're actually not doing that. More than 20 years ago, Pennsylvania enacted one of the nation's first charter school laws. Since then, this law has gained national notoriety for being one of the most fiscally irresponsible laws in the nation. A law that has forced some school districts to increase property taxes way out of proportion to the educational outcomes. And I want Pennsylvania to be known for having a good charter school law, one that emphasizes quality and accountability, transparency, fairness, and fiscal responsibility. I think that's what citizens want, and I know that's what legislators want too. We must update our flawed and outdated charter law for the benefit of every student and every taxpayer in the Commonwealth. Now, I want to make it clear that there are charter schools that are out there doing an excellent job. My wife, Frances, saw the need for a charter school in York County, Pennsylvania, and helped start an international baccalaureate school there. So she did that just under a decade ago, and that charter school has allowed kids in York County to do things that were unique and that could not have been done had that charter school not started. So creating new and innovative educational opportunities was one of the intentions of the charter school law. And again, just as in the case of York, many charter schools have succeeded in this mission. Unfortunately, this is not the case for all charter schools, especially among cyber schools, which make up 6% of Pennsylvania's schools but occupy 25% of the Department of Education's list for improvement. In fact, Stanford University found overwhelmingly negative results from Pennsylvania's cyber schools and called for the state to take urgent action. So I am. Charter schools, like traditional public schools, should be high quality, and they should be held accountable. But our laws currently do not allow us. They don't allow us to hold charter schools and their operators to the same standards as our traditional public schools. Under the law, charter schools can be operated by private educational management committees, with the company owners earning a profit. Charter schools and their operators are not subject to all the ethics and transparency standards that are common for organizations that make decisions about spending taxpayer money. They're not required to solicit competitive public bids when spending taxpayer dollars. They're not transparent about their admissions practices, and they don't always meet academic performance goals. And yet charter schools are very costly to school districts, which are obligated to pay tuition if a student chooses to enroll in a charter school. Over the last decade, charter school enrollment has increased by 95%. But the costs to taxpayers have jumped 135%. 95%, 135%. Because tuition rates are fixed, locally elected board members cannot make choices to reduce the cost of charters. To offset the loss, districts must instead raise revenue, primarily through raising property taxes. While the law was written to allow school districts to oversee charter schools operating in their district, the charter school law only gives local districts limited authority to oversee charter schools and hold them accountable. And because cyber charters are not based in one district, they don't receive any input from local school boards. This has left some districts paying thousands of dollars to cyber charters over which they have no say, and which may not be providing their children and their district with the education we all need them to get. This isn't good for anyone. It's not good for the school district, obviously, but it's also not good for the student, it's not good for the parents, and it's not good for the taxpayers. I want to create a level playing field for all taxpayer-funded public schools. I want to increase the quality and accountability of the charter school system. So today I'm announcing comprehensive charter school reform through executive action, regulations, and legislation. These changes will do a number of things. First, strengthen the accountability and transparency of charter and cyber charter schools. They'll control costs to taxpayers. And third, they'll better serve students across the education program. So first, I'm directing the Department of Education, Pedro Rivera here today, Secretary Rivera, to initiate a fee-for-service model to cover the costs to the department associated with implementing the charter school law. These costs include payment processing and legal and administrative support for the Charter Appeals Board. This will allow the department to recoup the costs associated with administering the charter school law. Second, we will begin to implement regulations that will support much-needed changes that have been discussed over several years in the legislature. This includes establishing the same ethics standards that apply to traditional public schools, so charter school decision makers can't direct taxpayer money to themselves or to their friends or to their family. They will require transparency so taxpayers can see their money is being spent appropriately. For example, mandating regular financial audits and public bidding processes. Transparency will provide greater oversight over charter schools' admissions practices, helping to eliminate the selection of students based on the financial remuneration they receive from the state, or based on gender, disability, race, or socioeconomic background. Finally, I'm going to ask the General Assembly to pass comprehensive charter school reform that includes all these efforts and more. As part of this, I am going to charge the State Board of Education with developing academic performance standards to increase the quality of charter school education. We do have many high-quality charter schools in our Commonwealth. These proposals will help build up the entire charter school system and hold all charter schools accountable to the same standards we set for traditional public schools, and to the same standards the high-quality charter schools already hold themselves accountable to. I have worked hard to push Pennsylvania's education system toward becoming the best in the nation through investments in basic education, in STEM, in early learning, and in workforce development. It's time to work on our charter school system. Reforming our charter law is good for every child, every family, every taxpayer in Pennsylvania. In the Allentown School District alone, these reforms will save millions of dollars just in Allentown, and will help us lay the groundwork for a strong future for all Pennsylvanians here and everywhere else. So I'm asking the General Assembly to join with me to restore equality to Pennsylvania's public schools and give every child in Pennsylvania the chance for a very bright future. I want to thank Representative Steve McCarter, Jim Roebuck, Mark Longetti, Maria Donatucci, Mary Isaacson, and Joe Cerisi, and Senators Jim Brewster and Vince Hughes for continuing to be great partners as we work toward reforming our charter school law. Thank you, all of you, for your dedication to this important initiative. Now I'm going to turn this over to someone who deals firsthand with the effects of charter schools, and that is Allentown School District Superintendent Thomas Parker. Dr. Parker.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to Harrison Morton Middle School. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to take a moment just to recognize a few more individuals who are here with us today, in addition to those that are standing behind me. We also have the mayor of the city of Allentown, Mr. O'Connell, and we also have our Lehigh County executive here with us as well. The Allentown School District Board of Directors is here representing us today as well. On behalf of the new principal, Patrick McNulty of Harrison Morton Middle School, again, I extend welcome and greetings. Allentown School District is ground zero for the impact of growth in charter school expense in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I can think of no better place to share our story than Harrison Morton Middle School. Did you know that this building that we sit in currently was built by, named after, developed during 18? President 18, Ulysses S. Grant. In 1874, Harrison Morton Middle School opened. Yes, this building is nearly 150 years old. We have 810 students who call this their home each day, and a dynamic community that supports this school. It's the next building to be restored or replaced on the district based on our feasibility study in 2016. In Allentown, 20% of our schools are over 100 years old. These aging facilities require substantial funding to maintain. The governor was last here in Allentown in April to discuss Restore PA and his initiative to address lead paint and other materials in public schools. The cost of maintaining buildings and ensuring that we provide high-quality education for students is a rising cost and is affected additionally by rising external expenses in this and other urban school districts. Let me pause here to reiterate that I and Allentown School District stance is not and has not ever been anti-charter, but we're a pro-school district. We're pro-City of Allentown. We have the futures of 17,000 students and the fate of the third largest city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, resting on our ability to and success in advocating for this school district. A fiscally and academically strong school district is critical to both. Resource deficiency threatens the success of both. ASD is one of many urban districts within the Commonwealth experiencing both fiscal and academic challenges, which threaten to impact our purpose. That purpose is to ensure that each and every child in our city, each and every child on 2nd Street in Allentown, has access and opportunity to the American dream. Allentown School District does face a number of challenges. In fact, in 2017, our Board of Directors made a profound effort to address these challenges when they commissioned a comprehensive fiscal audit, the development of a strategic framework, and subsequently a curriculum audit to identify issues and deficiencies in the district. Thanks to the partnership with the Department of Education and Secretary Rivera, thanks to our work with Carbon Lehigh Unit 21 and Dr. Elaine Ibe, we've begun working to address those long-standing issues in the district. As we address the needs of our children, our continued challenge has been identified as one of resource deficiency. Our curriculum audit identifies that the ASD fund balance and solvency ratio is inadequate to support optimal student outcomes. The curriculum audit states, quote, the ASD fund balance and solvency ratio is inadequate to support optimal student outcomes. Our ability to address the academic, social, and safety needs of 17,000 children is identified by fiscal impact. Allentown School District is projected to pay over $60 million in charter school tuition fees this year alone. That is nearly 20% of the annual budget of the district. Second largest expense only to employee costs. Just 10 years ago, that expense was $15 million a year. This was before my time here in Pennsylvania, but I hear there was even a reimbursement of those costs at that time as well. Charter school tuition costs has increased by 285% in less than 10 years. The district has experienced staff reductions and program reductions over time, yet the tuition cost growth outpaces the district's ability to reduce expenses and still provide high-quality instruction. To further illustrate, in 2014, just 4 years ago, the Allentown School District had a $30 million fund balance. At that time, the tuition cost for the district was about $30 million as well. 4 years later, those costs have doubled to $60 million, and the district, we find ourselves in deficit. We've identified a cause and effect relationship. Our district is one that serves a very diverse population and educates an increasing population of students with special needs. Our district is expected to spend more than $42 million on special education programs and costs this year alone. That is a 22% increase over the past 6 years. This year alone, we'll need to add 5 autistic support classrooms that will support 8 students each. That's about 40 students at the cost of over $1 million. Our district has experienced a 60% increase in our English learner population in the past 8 years. Due to funding concerns, in that same period of time, we've seen an 11% reduction in the staff associated with educating those kids who need the most. The outcomes of this disparity in funding can easily be seen in our academic results. We willfully, dutifully, and gladly educate every child that walks into our city and into our classrooms. But we need to ensure that we have the resources to do it effectively. The fiscal impact of resource deficiency can be most easily seen at our secondary level, and especially in our middle schools, just like the one you sit in today. Every middle school in the city of Allentown, Allentown School District, has been identified as comprehensive school improvement for the state. Both of our comprehensive high schools have been identified as targeted school improvement by the state, specifically for how we support students that are special needs and students that are English learners. I stand here just 2 years in working to turn around these academic concerns, and I reiterate and acknowledge that this is not an issue of our children's knowledge and ability. It is the outcome of resource issues that have limited the district's ability to meet the needs of children. If we do not find a way to address these needs, our district, our children, and a generation of Allentown will have been failed by our lack of action. I will continue to advocate on behalf of Allentown students, and I thank the governor for advocating on behalf of Allentown students as well. Recently, our board passed a resolution seeking a voluntary reduction in tuition payments from charter schools that serve Allentown students. Without critical support, we would be left to drastically reduce services to our students. The Allentown School District has worked in the past few years to reduce costs and have been graciously supported by additional funding from the Commonwealth and even by a loan to the district to allow us to move forward without drastically reducing program and services for children. We are at the cliff. Our next steps and our next decisions are critical. We can choose to either visit the resource dependency concerns upon the children that sit in the Allentown School District classrooms right now by further reducing people and programs in a district that has already reduced costs while experiencing an academic emergency. We see the outcomes of those decisions. Or we can choose to advocate. We can choose to find new ways to address the needs of our children without further creating separate but unequal systems of education across the Commonwealth. Children in Allentown that are primarily Black and Hispanic and economically disadvantaged must not be further removed from the opportunity afforded to all. I'll end with a quote that I used in an op-ed in the Morning Call just a few months ago. It cannot be the narrative of this city, of this region, of this district, that Allentown students deserve less than their peers in other zip codes. It cannot be our narrative that we educate our children with fewer resources. Again, I'd like to say thank you to Governor Wolf for taking these bold steps today, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Joseph Roy, Superintendent of the Bethlehem School District. Thank you.
Can I get an amen for that? I'd like to recognize, I saw Representative Samuelson join us, and also Representative McNeil joined us as we were going. Thank you, Governor, for being here, and thanks for putting forth this important issue. I just want to provide a few quick examples from the Bethlehem Area School District to put some numbers to it. The BSD's basic education funding from the state is consumed by our charter tuition costs. 30 million of the 32 million basic education funding goes to charter tuition, leaving less than 2 million to fund the district. Based on 2017 data submitted to PDE, the 24 charters that receive tuition from BASD spend on average $8,960 per special education student. But BASD is mandated under charter law to pay those charters $22,767 in 2017 per special education student. That's a tidy profit of $13,800 per special education student under the current charter funding. This adds up to millions and millions and millions of overpayments to charters and less money for school districts across the state. This is a perfect example of what Thomas and I have been talking about as separate and unequal systems. We have two publicly funded, separate and unequal systems, with the school districts getting the short end of the stick. There was a bipartisan special education commission identified a few years ago that identified this special education overpayment. There was legislation to fix this patently wrong financing, and it died in Harrisburg. The legislation was killed by the charter lobby. Even on, these issues are made by us, by legislation, so the good news is they can be corrected by legislation. Special ed funding is a critical one. Another area, the governor mentioned charter authorization. The charter legislation is heavily slanted in favor of charters, and as a result, districts are frequently overridden by the Charter Appeals Board when there's a dispute, and charters know this. So it leaves districts little real authority. A couple of examples. Example one, districts cannot view a charter application through the budget lens. Right? And we do everything we do, we put through the budget lens. Can we afford to do it? In the case of charters, the question, can the district and can taxpayers afford another charter school, can't be asked. The legislation prohibits that from being a criteria for approving or not approving a charter. Elected board members cannot consider cost in exercising their duties. Example two, our board approved a charter renewal with enrollment limits in an effort to control costs. The charter wouldn't agree. The Charter Appeals Board overruled us, put into place a charter without limits. In effect, 5 privately selected, unelected charter board members have more authority and more leverage than the duly elected members of the Bethlehem Area School Board. Charters have no responsibility toward a district's financial condition, separate and unequal. Example 3, one charter in our district built a $30 million school and failed to publicly bid it, and another is currently planning to build a $50 million, and the number is going to be higher in the end, of taxpayer money on a brand new building. That's $80 million in taxpayer dollars to pay to build 2 schools inside the BASD that the elected board of BASD has little to no control over. Another charter in the area spent 15 or 16,000 million to build a new gym, and charter students can participate on their home teams in their home high schools. So you have charters spending taxpayer money with no oversight to create programs that are duplicative of programs in the home high schools. It just doesn't make sense. Again, separate and unequal. Charters building new buildings with taxpayer money with little oversight, and Harrison Morton Middle School is still living under the ghost of President Grant. So Governor, thank you for stepping forward on an issue that is of concern not only to our students and families, but also to our taxpayers, and who, by the way, in most cases are unknowingly funding the charter schools in Pennsylvania. The problems are fixable. They are fixable, and I hope that we can move towards consensus in fixing some of the most obvious areas where we are separate and unequal. It's now my pleasure to introduce Representative Schweyer, who represents Allentown School District.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think we've driven home the fact that Ulysses S. Grant was President of the United States, so that takes at least 4 of my paragraphs away from earlier. So you're welcome. Now we're only left with about 7 or 8 pages. So you're welcome to all of our previous speakers. But I'm very proud to join everybody today. I think many of you in the room know that I'm a proud ASD dad. My oldest daughter, Sarah, is going to 7th grade at at South Mountain Middle School. And my youngest daughter, Erin, is going to 3rd grade at Lehigh Parkway Elementary School. And there are many reasons why we chose the Allentown School District. Number one, there's a neighborhood feel to our school districts. I mean, just look outside. I mean, most of our buildings here in the school district are in neighborhoods. And that neighborhood feel mattered to us. My daughters were able to walk to elementary school. We have a diverse student body here in Allentown that is far more reflective of the way America is going to look when my children are adults than they would in many other any other districts. So I'm very proud of that. That's another reason why we chose ASD. And frankly, we had a strong comfort level with the quality of education here in Allentown. Something that I think is dramatically overlooked by countless numbers of people inside the district, outside the district, in Allentown, outside of the Allentown, is that there is an outstanding educational opportunity for children here in Allentown. My oldest daughter was 97th percentile in the PSSAs. She competed as a 6th grader, and she got to states for National History Day, doing incredibly well against older students from surrounding districts. There is a tremendous educational opportunity for kids here in Allentown. And I want to thank all of the teachers in the room, all of the principals, all of the folks that have done such an incredible job of educating those 17,000 kids. Most importantly to me are Sarah and Erin. There's another reason why we chose Allentown schools, though, is that if we had a problem, we knew we had recourse. We had a way to address it. As Mr. Sang, who was principal Sang, knows, because Will was my daughter's principal before he was elevated to a place at central administration, we had no problems going to him if we had a concern. But I knew if that there was an issue beyond something that the principal could handle or a principal could address, we had our duly elected school board members that I could talk to, that I could address any grievance that I had over the direction of the school district. Now, when a potential charter school is applying to a district, it must demonstrate community support. They're poked and prodded in many ways. They have to demonstrate community support, financial solvency, and they have to explain their academic innovation, the reason why they're asked to be chartered. But frankly, once a charter is established, there is very limited oversight at that point in time. There's no school board member I could go to complain about the direction of a particular charter school. We have no idea if a charter school is using taxpayer money appropriately. Right now, we could go to PennWatch, which is a publicly available website, and we can learn about all the stuff that's going on in our school districts. What we can't learn about is what our public charter schools are doing with those same resources. It's hard to even know if those charter schools are following the academic programs its leadership laid out during the approval process, or frankly, if the children are learning at all. They get the PSSAs just like our kids do, but outside of that, there's really no constant oversight by school districts that's mandated by the state. Now, I'm a parent in Allentown. There are perceptions of every charter school that every parent of Allentown has. Some people think some charter schools are really high achieving and really wonderful. There are perceptions of charter schools that some of them just simply aren't that good. I have visited countless charter schools in my time as a legislator. One that I visited it seems extraordinarily good. The kids seem to be happy, and most importantly, the feedback I get from the parents is that they generally like it. And I visited another charter school where the front door wasn't locked. The lights weren't on in the classroom. That was, to all the charter school advocates, and I know most of you here in the room, that one was not in Allentown, just so you know. The lights were not on in the classroom, the front door wasn't locked, and there was no security in the room, in the building, that I could see. That's just what I've seen as a legislator asking to come in to talk to the kids. And really, I was just there to talk to the students. Folks may be right or wrong about their perceptions of any one particular charter school, but parents should have the right, the fundamental right, to know, to understand, and to believe that the charter school, if they choose a charter school, that it's the right thing for their kids because they have the data. And if they choose to keep their child enrolled in that charter school, they have the data to be able to make that decision moving forward. Just like I do as an ASD dad. I know the data of the schools that my daughters are going to. I have recourse if there's an issue. I know where the taxpayer money is going. And all we're asking for, all we're demanding today is that everybody is held to that same standard. And lastly, again, all taxpayers deserve to know that their tax dollars are being used appropriately. I was recently appointed to the Property Tax Reform Commission, and there's been conversation in Harrisburg since 50, 60, 70 years now about how we're going to reform property taxes. But as we heard from our superintendent just earlier, 20% of our budget, 25% of our budget is going to a group of schools that may be high performing, may be using their dollars appropriately. But we just need to know that for sure. That's not an unfair request as we continue to ask taxpayers to do more and more. I want to thank a couple of people. It was already mentioned that my colleagues and friends, Representative Samuelson, Representative McNeil, are with us here today. Their incredible leadership on all areas of education. I worked for Steve as a 22-year-old guy just starting out in this industry. I just dated you a little bit, Steve. That's what staff gets to do to their former bosses in public. But I want to thank you for your years of support and advocacy for our public schools. One person who's not here today that I think also deserves a particular shout out is Representative Mike Schlossberg. Mike's wife is a teacher here at Harrison Morton Middle School, educating those 810 students who call Harrison Morton home. And I'd like to thank her and Mike for all of their support as well. But mostly, Governor Wolf, I'd like to thank you and Secretary Rivera for your incredible advocacy for public education. Not only does every family in Pennsylvania, regardless of if they have kids in public school or not, do better because of your advocacy for a more and a higher educated group of students, but most importantly, me as a parent who sends my children to the Allentown schools proudly, knows that my kids are better off and our community is better off because of your investment and your commitment. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Mr. Secretary Pedro Rivera.
So as we come here today, I can't help but think in the back of my mind we're preparing for the start of a new school year. And we know that the start of the year ushers in a sense of optimism and opportunity, which should serve as a reminder for us that whatever our role in education, whatever our role in this community, we're all in the position to learn something new and to do something new. So as the governor noted so persuasively, Pennsylvania's charter law, enacted nearly a quarter century ago, isn't working. It isn't working for traditional public schools. It isn't working for public charter schools. And it's time to do something new. It's time to recognize that this isn't a kid issue or a school issue, but rather a policy issue. Governor Wolf noted that there are countless examples of the good we can do when we let evidence guide us. Evidence like starting school earlier, staying at school longer, increase lifelong earnings, and provide opportunities for more engaged citizens. Evidence like tailored approach to school improvement is likely to not only yield local ownership, but improve school and student outcomes. Evidence like honoring and elevating our teachers will not only improve the teacher pipeline, but diversify opportunities and experiences in our community. And the same is true for charter reform. We know that fairer, more consistent funding across our entire system of public education is vital to the economic and educational health of places like Allentown. We know that fair accountability provides important signals to parents and families that inform choices about high-quality educational opportunities. So the tenets outlined by the governor, accountability, fairness, equity, and quality, and transparency are things we can all get behind. They honor the intent of the original charter school law. They build on the bipartisan successes we've seen over the past 5 years, and they can make a meaningful difference in the lives of kids. Because at the end of the day, we are here to focus on the opportunities for children and the students we serve. So for that, I applaud my colleagues who are able to share context to their experiences here today, the General Assembly for engaging with us to really push a fairer, more transparent option, and the governor for taking an issue like this and being a champion for change to ensure all of our students, whether in traditional public schools, public charter schools, have the opportunities they deserve. With that, I'll invite the governor back to the podium to share some final thoughts.
And I just want to thank everybody again for being here and for the things that you've said, and also all of you for being here. This is an issue that we all have to deal with. What we're trying to do is make sure that as our students, as our families exercise their choice, that we create the level playing field, that we actually have accountability so that taxpayers feel comfortable, whatever option families choose for their children, that the taxpayers' interests are being recognized. And finally, that we do what's right for the kids, that we make sure that the education that those children are getting wherever they go is as good an education as we need them, each one of us need them to have. That's what today is about. That's what these reforms are about, and that's what we're trying to do here. Thank you all for being here. I'll do a gaggle over here for anybody who has any questions.